thank you for meeting up with me tonight, man. I'm really excited for our very first podcast. Why don't you introduce yourself, and then I'll introduce myself, and let's tell our followers who we are and what we do.
All right, well, I'm Aaron Silverberg. I'm one of the co-founders of Common Lands Associated Media, and I'm a teacher by day and a rather new but passionate Dungeons & Dragons player.
My name is Corey Burns. I've been playing Dungeons & Dragons and other tabletop RPGs for over 20 years. I'm also a teacher. That's where Aaron and I met. We're both special education teachers. We live in the Chicagolands area, and we're both very passionate story writers. How long have you been writing fiction?
Well, I guess on and off since, college age.
Yeah? How many years would you say?
So about 10 to 12 years.
I've always been passionate about writing stories. I always thought, that's so cool. I think of D&D as like, you remember when you were in kindergarten and somebody wanted to play house with you, and it's like your brain goes into that house zone where you're like, oh, it's all imagination. And I think as adults, we just don't find the time to play house anymore.
I know that I've mentioned this to you before. So my whole family is like uber talented at art. Any medium, it could be sculpting, painting, whatever. And so I remember even as like a little kid wanting to, be as artistic as them, and I wasn't.
Yeah.
But the one thing that I was always into, that I didn't care what it looked like, was fantasy cartography. I always wanted to create little worlds or little regional parts of a world with continents, and there was no practical application for this. This was just my way to daydream in class, basically. And then I'd create little civilizations and, different societal stuff. Mm-hmm. And for the first time in my life, when I got into D&D, it was like, oh, wait a minute. This thing that never served any function and I never used to connect with anybody for 3 decades, all of a sudden is a skill that a lot of young DMs are trying to build.
I think that you're seeing the emphasis on world building more so now than ever. I mean, you look at things like the Marvel Universe, the Wizarding World, the Star Wars Galaxy. I mean, all of these things are great on their own with their lovable characters, but what really makes them great is the world for which they exist in. I mean, even Matt Mercer with Tel'Dorai and all of that stuff, they create a world that people want to be in. And that has more value, I think, sometimes than probably anything else within the franchises that we just love. I mean, like Harry Potter, for example. Harry Potter isn't even in the top 5 of my favorite characters in the Harry Potter franchise. But when I go to Universal Studios and you walk past that brick wall and there you are in Diagon Alley, it's like, wow, man, I'm in a world. And I think D&D does that. It puts your brain in a world, and it's like nothing else I've ever experienced in my life. It's all your problems go away.
That's like when I get this really serious face at the gaming table, and I think it's at least once every session, Corey will be like, "How you doing, man? You okay?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, I'm good, man, but I got my game face on. I'm just so in the game," and I think definitely one of my flaws or strengths, depending on the way you look at it, is I think sometimes I do get a little, I feel the table's not completely 100% in this world like I am. I'm getting, you know what I mean?
There's a self-consciousness to it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've probably played with close to 100 people in the years of my role-playing experiences, and it's such a wide range of different, skills that get brought to the table. I personally love the involved player. I love the intense player because I get crushed by reality sometimes. It's like you got work, you got bills, you got responsibilities, and I think that's where some of the popularity of things like Dungeons & Dragons come in and explode, because here is a game, and I've said this for decades now, here is a game that is a goodwill game, and it's a hand-me-down game. I mean, you look at it as somebody teaches you how to play. A lot of times it's like a gateway game. Someone's like, "Oh, hey, you play Dungeons and Dragons for?" Was that your experience by any chance, where someone kind of came up to you?
Oh yeah, the first person who brought me into their table went out of their way he's a friend of ours, to make me my own personalized binder with a copy of the PHB in there and my own die set. And everything was organized the way that I would then do the exact same for my class when I ran it in my class, because he knew, okay, this has got to be easy and palatable for this guy who's never played it before.
I know that's the same for me. I remember I was in high school. I was 15. My best friend at the time was like, hey, you got to try this game. I tried it. This stuff's great. And so, I was hesitant, and, there was a stigma to it when I started playing, and I said, whatever, I'll give it a go. I'm pretty open to anything, and I fell in love immediately. And I remember within months of first playing Dungeons & Dragons 3rd Edition saying, I have my own stories to tell, and I need to find people who want to play so that I can tell these stories. So that's what I mean by, it's a hand-me-down game. I find a lot of people I talk to get it brought into their world by someone they know, but nowadays you're seeing it a lot with things like, Mercer, Colville, Ack Inc., and all these other very popular YouTubers who are bringing Dungeons & Dragons into your home and teaching you. I mean, there's so many great YouTube channels to teach you things about Dungeons & Dragons or tabletop role-playing that you didn't know. So you don't necessarily need that friend anymore who's like, hey, bud, you want to learn something?
Well, the other thing is you legit have people all over, kids and adults, who've never played D&D or other role-playing games, tabletop games, that are tuning in and watching other people play these games for hours.
That to me blows my mind, I would never imagine in 1,000 years that somebody would want to watch people playing Dungeons & Dragons at a table. The demand is higher than ever. You have, popular shows like Stranger Things that have really blown it up. I think that you can't deny that Critical Role has definitely amplified the gaming experience. Local conventions are getting more popular than ever. There's sort of a what would you say, cross-pollination between, the comic book world, which I'm very much into, and, I see Dungeons & Dragons creeping into there, tabletop creeping into there. The possibilities with crowdfunding to share your own ideas it's just, we live in a renaissance right now for creativity.
Well, obviously 5e has been a major part of just the reprise, and I think perhaps its biggest criticism has been maybe oversimplification, but it is, from my view, especially as a new player, that's the thing that I've played most, is I see people from all demographics, all ages, finding this game fun and digestible. And I don't think that was necessarily my experience when you were, running us through 3.5. You know what I mean? I think it was like a whole one shot just to make our characters.
It felt the character generation process has come a long way as far as simplification. But I can tell you this, I've been saying this since 5e came out. I was at Gen Con. I remember buying the book there and eager to sit down at night and just read it and kind of get a feel for what I'm about to play. And I remember thinking to myself, man, this is just D&D's greatest hits. It's like, how many times have you sat there, you think of a band you love, they're very popular, and it's like, you know what, man, I really just want the greatest hits. And I think a lot of people resonate with that sort of vibe, and it's probably a big contributing, I have to imagine, a big contributing factor to why 5th edition has been so successful.
I think the designers of the game were well aware of the hand-me-down aspect that you were just referring to, and when you give this, more simplified, more streamlined delivery of the game, everybody that's got this as part of their life, their culture, their social circle, they can still influence the game as you will. And that's the best thing about D&D. I think that's one of the original things that D&D was ever meant to do, was to get you to bring your own stories to the table.
And that's why I call it a goodwill game. I remember, growing up, we'd play with bottle caps, We'd get bottle caps and we'd throw those on the battle map, and it was like, your Goose Islands and your Coca-Colas were your bad guys, and we only, had our own minis on the board, or, going to the dollar store and getting gemstones, or I remember when Christmas time came around, you go to the dollar store, you could find some really great scenery pieces that you could put on your battle map. I mean, it was a goodwill game because, if you didn't even have any of that stuff, at the very least, you could sit there and use your imagination. I remember in the summer we were playing Star Wars Saga Edition, an old gaming group with me, and we were sitting around the campfire playing that, using nothing but theater of the mind. And I think that's the beauty of the game.
I remember my buddy Brett, we played through the Ura campaign with, and I remember this was prior to that. He had never played D&D, and I am also a neophyte who's just drawn up my first very Hamlet-style like town, and I'm just like explaining how it works. And we didn't even have die, and I was just like, whatever, you don't even need anybody. Just go through the town. Forget about like all the adventures, the stat blocks, the killing, all of that stuff that so many people love about the game. I just remember how magical it was for him to be like, oh, this is. So I can just like walk into this bar and say and do anything?
Yeah.
And it's just like, yes, absolutely anything. You could spend this could be the whole game. We have our friend Mike, who I think, because he likes to get under your skin, but genuinely has fun just playing Wizard's Dice for an extra hour during the campaign. Which, quite frankly, because he loves it at the table, then makes me love it. I'm like, okay, well, this is like in a movie. I feel like I'm in Maverick.
Has come to take the city by storm because he cares about making things fair. So Dr. Weaver, beware, the demon is here.